Behind every bit of mom wisdom is a story of a real mom and real kids just trying to love each other well. Whether you're cozied up on the couch with a mug of coffee, pulling out of car line and heading to work, or out for a walk, you're welcome to join us as we share stories and laugh, learn, and grow together. It's the I'm On podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the I'm On podcast. I'm Abby with Susan and Megan and Chloe, who is telling this week's story. And I've titled this week's episode, Friends Are Friends Forever, so that we can all have the song stuck in our head for the rest of the day.
Yeah, so I'm telling the story. So I had a friend growing up, and we're going to call her Meredith. And Meredith and I, we grew up in church together, and our families were close as well. And we got along really well, so we played together from the time we were little. And when middle school rolled around, she just kind of started to become a bit of a mean girl. And I was able to keep hanging out with her, though, because I just wasn't the victim of her mean girl tendencies at that point. So I just kind of
Isn't that the worst when you see it happening and you're like, when's it going to win? Am I going to be the target?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I was just kind of a witness. And then after middle school, when high school rolled around, that's when things started to change. So I was hanging out at my boyfriend's house, and messages started to pop up on his Facebook. And they were from Meredith. And I was like confused. So I began to investigate, and I asked my boyfriend, I said, do you know Meredith? And he said, I don't know her, but she messages me like every day. And I was like, can I look at him? And so I went and looked, and it's just messages from her that are just like, hey, like unresponded to. But then there were a couple of things she had said about me in there, like not being, the girl for him or whatever, just petty stuff, which really, it hurt. It really, really hurt. So I just got on his Facebook and was like, hey, it's Chloe. And she said, hey, girl. I was like, no. And it just started a text war, and things just kind of took off from there. But what ended up happening was her mom took her phone and texted me and said, hey, it's Mrs. Meredith's mom. And
nice save.
Yeah. And I think your mom and I should talk about what's going on between you and Meredith. I was like, okay. Which, I know this woman pretty well. We go to church together. And I said, Mom, I'm fighting with Meredith. And Meredith's mom wants to talk to you about it. And my mom was like, no, I'm not going to talk to Meredith's mom about yours and Meredith's fight. You guys can deal with that on your own. And to make a long and dramatic story short, we ended up going our separate ways. We had a fight, and then we just decided to put the friendship on the shelf.
Without your mom's involvement.
Without my mom's involvement. And just looking back on that story, I find it interesting that my mom's thought process was, no, I'm not getting involved. And then Meredith's mom was, we need to get involved, and the moms need to figure it out for you guys. And I'm really thankful my mom let me figure it out, because fortunately at that point I had several quality friends in my life, and I knew what a good friend looked like, and Meredith was not that friend. And I'm just thankful that she trusted me to discern whether or not, I wanted a friend like that in my life. And even though we had history, our families knew each other, we would see each other around, and it could be awkward. My mom let me decide, is that something you want to live with? Is that something you want to figure out on your own? And I'm glad she did, because I feel like I learned a lot in that falling out, and I learned what to expect from a friend. And I'm just, at that point, I think we were 15 when we had the full fallout. So anyways, I thought my mom handled it really, really well. And I just wanted to ask you guys, what kind of experiences have you had with your kids' friends, and how to help them navigate friendships?
Megan, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like moms today feel a lot more pressure to make sure our kids have friends than maybe like I feel that my mom felt about me. Do you, I mean, for with kids your kid's age, you have to set up play dates and things. He's not going to make a phone call to a friend. Or maybe he
Correct.
is.
He's 3. So yeah, no, I would hope not.
Like, do you feel some pressure to make sure that your son has, quote, a friend and not just someone to socialize with?
Yes. I also feel like his friends are my friends' kids right now.
Yeah.
Because the parents want to hang out and we just force our kids to play together.
Yeah.
I do feel like, though, that my generation is also just overly involved in everything in their kids' lives, not just that aspect. So I feel like we're more involved. I mean, my parents were super involved, but I think it's just becoming more and more and more. Like, I think my parents were more involved in our lives than their parents were in their lives. And it's just the trend is continuing more and more. So I do feel responsible for making sure he has friends right now. But at the same time, like, he plays with the 2 and 4-year-old little girls right now because they're my friends' friends.
Yeah.
So it may not last forever because I'm sure at some point he'll want to play with kids in his class and whatnot. But yeah, that's how it is right now.
I think that it definitely, like when they're little, obviously you have to arrange everything. But at what age do you stop arranging play dates for your kids or stop? Susan, do you remember when your kids were growing up, like when you kind of let them determine how they were going to pursue a friendship?
Yes. And I do think it's different based on the child's ability to make wise choices. So I think when they're really little, yes, I would try to get them together with kids that I thought were good choices. In fact, I think I've told the story with Megan. She was the first one to go to this school.
I was a loser and I had no friends.
I didn't know the moms. I didn't know the
She
kids.
paid kids.
Yeah. So I asked the teacher, I said, who would be a good friend for Megan? And nailed it. She's still friends with them and they're, in their 30s.
Matchmaker.
So
That is so sweet.
that was a teacher who nailed it. They're still friends. They were in each other's weddings.
That is
No,
so sweet.
I'm just laughing because I've not been concerned about James making friends, maybe because he is like really social and extroverted. I'm just laughing thinking back that my mom was like so concerned she wouldn't ask the teacher to help me make friends.
Which is so funny because you're such a gal pal, Megan. Like, you're such
I know. That's
so funny.
I don't
It
know.
was a brand
I was
new
a loser.
school.
I'm telling you.
No, you weren't.
That's so not true. It was K4. It was a new school. I didn't know anybody. And so, I wanted you to find the right friends. Anyway,
I love that.
long story.
I mean, I rely on James to make me friends at this point.
Go, James, go make me.
That's true.
Go find us some
Like,
friends.
you go
James.
make friends. I want to be friends with that little kid's mommy. So you go make friends with her right now.
Yep. I've done that.
I will say this. I have had conversations with several of my children about, there was one time one of my sons was friends with a boy and I started getting reports from school, from the teacher, that they were getting into trouble. And I said to him, look, here's the deal. I hear you want to have so-and-so over to play, but based on your behavior in school, I don't think this is a friendship that I should encourage. Mm-hmm. So you have to show me that you can be a leader with him. Mm-hmm. In your case, Chloe, it sounds like your mom knew you had it under control.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you have to watch for. There was a time when one of my girls had a really close friend, great family friends, but there were times when the other girl got pulled into drama that then had a desire to be popular and she would hurt my daughter. And I finally got to the point where I said, okay, do you see what's happening here? You're on a yo-yo that is controlling your emotions. And because of that, it's impacting how you feel about school. And we are not at school just for friends. We're at school to focus on our education. And if it's impacting your education, then I think you need to find another friend group because you're so caught up in the drama that's going on. So you got to have those conversations the older they get, I
So
think.
in that situation, did your daughter know that that girl wasn't a good friend? Because I think about, just even my friends as adults who have people in their lives who don't treat them well. Like, how do you encourage your kid? Maybe that friend's
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. It was a lot of back and forth. Like, okay, is this worth it to you?
Yeah.
Is this the kind of friend you want, the one that keeps you on a yo-yo and makes you feel like you don't know if they're going to be your friend today or they're going to not be your friend because they want to be in this other group?
Oh, I feel like that's half the friendships that I had as a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
End up kicking girls under the table.
And you can't, at that age, you can't really, in their middle school, high school, control what they do at school,
Right.
but you can talk to them about it.
Yeah. I think that a lot of moms worry about kind of what I was saying a moment ago about their kids having friends, especially today, because we just don't really socialize the way that we used to. I know that when I was growing up, I had friends from school and we would hang out at like slumber parties or something like that. But most of my after school hangout was with kids in my neighborhood. It was the next door neighbor saying, "Can Abby come out and play?" So now I don't think that happens quite as much because neighborhoods are just different. The kids in my small neighborhood probably go to 5 different schools. Kids that are all the same age either go to that charter school or that public school or that private school or that, So I just don't think that our kids play like they used to. And so the idea of your kids having friends feels like more of a burden on a mom because the natural way to play is just not happening the way that it used to.
And I think the sad thing is they spend so much time at school. Literally, I mean, if they ride the bus, it can be like 8, 9, 10 hours. And they're getting their view of themselves from the same set of kids that they're with all day. That in most schools, there's only 2 or 3 classes per grade. So they're with these kids for a long time, some of them. And they don't get the chance to make friends like in the neighborhood or maybe in church groups or other things where the kids don't know their reputation at school. And so that's sometimes a hard thing. If your child only gets a view of themselves from one set of kids, it can be really good or really bad.
Yeah.
We have the Conversation Starters printable on iMom that is about friendship. And one of the questions is, do you ever wish you could hang out with different kids? And I think some of the questions on this printable are really good to inspire that conversation with your kids.
And that's where I think Boy Scouts, church groups, whether your child is in, a chorus or a dance group or a sport, where they're mixed up with kids who maybe aren't in their school or different.
So what if we have an article that was very successful on Facebook? I think the title was, "My kid's so nice, so why does she sit alone at lunch?" So what if, how does a mom look at a child who doesn't seem to have those real rich friendships? Maybe it's just like they are kind of acquaintances with a lot of kids, but no real friendships. How do you look at that child and figure out what might be the cause of the lack of friendship,
Sometimes, I mean, we've had the situations like this, but Megan, I don't know if you remember how important finding out what lunch you were in was in middle school and high school. It's like the first thing they look at on their schedule.
It was like the end all be all of my life. Finding out what
wouldn't have
lunch
been able
you
to
were
tell
in.
you that until you just said that. And I'm like, yes, I remember that. Which lunch do you have?
I remember especially the girls coming to me going, "I'm in the wrong lunch. You've got to change my classes. You've got to sign this so I can get in the other lunch." It is always super important.
Sounds like you had a kid who was a complainer or a whiner.
I know. No, it's just they were paranoid about being alone at lunch.
No, I think this is probably where all my social stuff, I didn't have friends. And then I was all about making friends. And then if I had gotten the wrong lunch and I knew I wasn't going to be with my friends, then it was like, it was this constant fear throughout my life, a theme, not having friends.
I sometimes said, if you're not, perhaps God wants you to be alone for a time. This is not a bad thing always. It may feel humiliating, but sometimes God does want our kids to be a little bit alone and to depend on Him. And it's really hard as a mom to watch that. Then on the other hand, if your child is always alone, yes, social coaching, social skills. And again, as a mom, going ahead and manipulating a friendship. It's okay to go to the teacher and say, my son seems to be alone all the time. Is there anybody you think that would be a good friend for them? Because sometimes they don't have the social intuition to know how to look for the right friend for them. They're pining after the wrong friends and not being accepted in the crowd that they're pining for rather than seeing the kid sitting right next to them.
I think that's really true. Like one of my boys, I think gravitates toward a group of kids who's a little bit more, like a little louder, a little like has more energy, like a lot of these boys. And he has said they all play sports together. They all play soccer together. And he doesn't, I mean, he has said he doesn't want to play soccer. His only reason to want to do it is because he wants to have something to talk about with these kids. And so it's like, do they gravitate toward that like maybe popular group because those kids are just more in their face, like they're more aware of them as opposed to the kid that sits in the corner who might also really like Hamilton. Like my kid likes Hamilton and would like to discuss Hamilton.
I want to hang with your kid.
Yeah.
Right, Hamilton.
Well, I do remember you telling us too, if we didn't get in the lunch with our usual friends, you
Sounds
told
like we struck a
me,
chord.
you
with
said,
Megan.
well, no, you said, I mean, I remember you said, okay, well, who can you make friends with at that lunch? Why don't you make some new friends? Or why don't you find the kid that is sitting by themselves and go sit with them and make friends with them? Because I'm sure they don't want to be eating by themselves.
Yeah. I went through a season where I always had friends, but my friends that were really close to me were just kind of going down a path that I knew I shouldn't go down. And it was really, really hard because I wanted to hang out with them and I knew they wanted to hang out with me, but we were making different decisions. And I remember talking to my mom about it and just being really sad. And my mom was like, you know what, we're going to pray that God brings you a best friend. And he did. And that girl was my maid of honor and she's my best friend in the world. And it's so funny because her and I, we've known each other since we were 5. We danced together, we played soccer together, we just never connected. And then honestly, it took us until about our junior year of high school to just have the right, like similarities and personalities, and we just clicked. And so I'm really thankful my mom, she met me with empathy and she taught me how to pray for things that I really was wanting.
I think that's a great prayer that a lot of moms forget to pray for their kids because it feels a little bit superficial maybe, but you know that, and I've prayed that for my husband, you know, for other adults as well, that God, will you send a person into his life who they'll be a good match personality wise, also help sharpen his, you know, love for you and his knowledge of you. And like, I just think that is such a valuable thing, an important thing to pray for.
Yeah.
So, So let's kind of, well, first of all, I also want to say that sometimes moms have to face the hard truth that if your child doesn't have friends, there might be an issue with your child.
Yes.
You know, like if your kid kicks kids under the table and in the shins like I did,
Crabby Abby.
maybe, right? Maybe there's a reason they don't have friends. Maybe there's something. And so I don't know how you discover that cause.
That's a good question. Yeah.
That's when you really start. And I'm all about the mom mafia.
Yeah.
You know, I am. I just am, you know, talking to their moms, observing your child, having them have somebody over to play. If they're older, if you don't have access to, you know, their social media and watching them, I'm talking about high school and stuff. But if your child's the bully, if your child is really struggling socially to the point that they're ostracized, that's a child that's at risk for becoming depressed, and you want to head that off. You have to there are times when you have to intervene and take drastic action, and there's so much coaching that can be done, or when they're young, supervised play dates to teach them those skills.
Yeah.
And
hopefully you would have another mom who would have the courage to come to you and say it, and you have the courage to listen with an open mind. But I think that the teacher could be another good resource for you to, you know, you say, why doesn't so-and-so have friends? And she could be like, well, he's a jerk. You know,
I'll tell you what, we may want to cut this part out, but if you have a friend who has, in the case of boys, if you have a friend who has a pretty intuitive daughter, they just the girls usually know what's going down with everything. I have asked friends before who have a daughter, so your daughter's in my son's class. Tell me what's going on in the class, you know?
That's funny, yeah.
Because girls spill.
Yeah.
boys are more black and white. You know, I think they're more surface, where girls observe and will let you know what's going on.
They give you the color commentary.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the other side of it. We talked about making friends. What about either ending friendships or helping kids determine how close they should be with certain kids? I just heard a story the other day, kind of similar to what you said, Chloe, about your issue that growing up. Another coworker of ours went with her daughter to have it out with a friend. And basically, she's like, I watched my daughter and this other little girl at like 12 years old confront each other, talk about their differences, and they decided basically to break up.
Oh my gosh.
They ended their friendship. She said it broke my heart because I thought we're too young to have like this type of conflict and finality in our relationships. Like they're 12. But she said they decided. And her daughter went in the bathroom and cried. So it hurt her, but our friend did not get involved. Like our coworker did not get involved except for to bring her to the ice cream place to have this breakup conversation. I don't think my mom would ever, I don't know. I don't think I ever took friendships that seriously. We just kind of like ghosted each other when it was time for them to end, you know?
Yeah, and I kind of had the thought that kids go in and out of stages. They outgrow things. So I used to say to my kids, you don't want to burn any bridges.
Yeah.
Okay, if you need to step away from somebody because they're in a bad season, or like Chloe said, they were going down the wrong path for a time, you want to do that. But you're not married to this person. It's not a cousin. I could see if it was a cousin, you wouldn't have the break it up thing, but you would want them to work it out. Look, you're cousins.
Right.
We're going to be together. You got to work this out.
Right.
My mom has she calls them like first class friends, second class friends. And she's like, you can move them throughout your plane. Like sometimes, some seasons they're not going to be in your
I'm
first
so glad
class.
you said that, Chloe, because do you remember when our graphic girl, Taylor, told us about red light friends?
Yes.
Same type of deal.
Yeah, same type of. So I think, because my mom was the same way, like, and with the friends I was mentioning who were going down the wrong path, like, those girls are amazing girls today, and we're all still really good friends. It was literally just a season in their lives, and we didn't have any sort of finality to our friendship. And I thank God, because we have, we have so many memories together, and we're still friends.
And you probably laugh about that bad season now.
Oh, they're both moms now, and one of the girls is like, my son is not getting away with anything. I did the worst things in high school. Like she's so like, she learned from it. She's laughed about it. So
I want to talk about these red, yellow, and green light friends. This is a system that our friend Taylor's mom did with her. And it's a method to help your child discern who they should hang out with. Because like you just said, not every friendship is the same. And so that color helps determine the degree of closeness that you are to this child. So kids who are trustworthy, longtime friends are green. The friends who you know but aren't quite sure of are yellow. And the new acquaintances or old friends who haven't been behaving properly or who your child thinks are maybe unsafe move to red. But the key that Taylor's mom said, was key to this system is that your child is the one that chooses what color. Are they red, yellow, or green? Because when you put them in control, it tells them that you trust their judgment, and it also encourages them to consider what makes someone a good influence in their life and who they want to allow to speak into their life.
I love that.
Of course, you also have the opportunity, that means that your child might be like, well, I really want to hang out with this person. He's a troublemaker, but he's fun. So you do have to, probably jump in. But, and then she said the colors can change. You might move your child, and there's no printable, like there's no chart that you like move your child from like that friend to one thing.
Move your school bus
but
back.
It does put the burden on the child. Like I said with my son, when you show me that you can behave in school with this child, then you can play outside of school with this child.
Well, and for them, like she used the example of sleepovers. She said green light friends, she could spend the night at their houses and do pretty much anything with them, like go out on a Friday night after a football game if they're in high school. Yellow light friends, she could spend the night at their houses only if there were also green light friends there.
Oh, wow.
Or she could hang out with them during the day. And then red light friends, she could not sleep over at their house, but they could stay at her house. And then they could hang out during the day if there were enough other friends present. So obviously it applies to things other than sleepovers, but I thought that was just really smart. I really appreciated it too.
I feel like I need like a chart, like like pictures up on a wall. And they like,
Megan, you love people so much. You'd be moving the people. I'd say, no, you can't spend the night. That's a red light friend. No, Mom, I moved him to green.
Yeah.
Everybody's on green.
Well, one other thing I was going to say too about burning bridges is you just never know when they're going to pop back up again in life. And I've had that happen. Fortunately, I did not burn the bridge, but I thought about it. And I think probably one of my parents stopped me from doing that. And Fortunately, that was a good thing because I think they did pop up later in life.
Yeah.
As Chloe mentioned, we do have a good printable about conversation starters about friendships. We also have a good one, Discuss It, Making Friends. And it talks about like little like role play things you can do with your kids to encourage them to approach another child. Like try smiling, compliment them on something, ask a question, use their name, things that maybe don't come natural to all kids. But if you coach them and practice with them, like, hi, Timmy. Nice to meet you, Timmy. Like, that's why you got to practice. You have to
Ask a question. And you know what? Even teens need help with that because they don't talk to each other anymore.
Gosh.
I know.
Yeah. Eye contact.
Yeah. I know. So how involved should a mom be in her kids' friendships? Tell us via the link in the show notes. And be sure to subscribe to our iMom Minute email to get articles every single day. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the iMom podcast. iMom is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMom Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMom podcast is hosted by me, Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal.